Hey YouTube, today we're breaking down the Turkish Get-Up, one of the best kettlebell exercises for your core, your shoulders, mobility, stability, and overall athleticism. The Turkish Get-Up is often called yoga with weight, and it's that yoga approach to graceful, coordinated movement combined with alignment and balance in certain postures that we apply to the get-up itself. The full get-up sequence comprises of about 12 steps that lead your body through different positions, from lying on the ground to kneeling to standing and all the way back down again, all while stabilizing a weight overhead. The get-up is one of those desert island exercises, one lift that checks a lot of boxes. It builds strength, mobility, and control through practically every joint and muscle group in your entire body. The get-up is notoriously tricky to learn, at least it was for me. And even after months of training and practicing, I was still making little mistakes and getting confused on some of the steps. And it wasn't until going to my very first kettlebell workshop that I finally got it down. And to be honest, that was even only really because I pestered one of the lead instructors to work with me one-on-one during the lunch break, which she was so gracious to do. So in this video, I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks that she taught me so that I can help you shorten your learning curve so you can start enjoying all of the amazing benefits that this lift has to offer. Let's start with an overview of the basic steps that will also serve as a handy reference guide. Before we dive into the techniques, first, a disclaimer. Even though you'll see the get-up demonstrated in this video with a kettlebell, you're definitely going to need to learn the whole sequence of the get-up first without using any weight, and then even once you're comfortable with all the steps, you're gonna wanna practice with either a shoe or a yoga block or something balanced on top the fist. Now, there are three main reasons that I say this. Number one, the get-up is a complex lift and it's easy to get pretzeled up. You don't want to be worried about learning and figuring out the steps while also balancing a heavy hunk of iron over your head. Number two, balancing something on your fist will teach you about efficiency and proper alignment. You'll be forced to slow down and keep a perfectly vertical arm, which is a key part of the get-up technique. And third, the unweighted or so-called naked get-up is a valuable exercise in its own right. Sure, it's cool to show off your strength with a heavy kettlebell, but the real value of the get-up is in coordinating your body basically to get your head back up over your center of gravity in a fall recovery scenario. So let's begin with the setup. Lie down next to your kettlebell so that it's aligned to the side that you wish to load up. How we get the kettlebell into position here is very important, so don't rush this. Tuck the knees into the chest and lie on your side facing the kettlebell. Spear your downside hand through the handle, adopting your diagonal press grip. Place your other hand on top to double up the grip. Reverse the roll to your back while leveraging the kettlebell into the floor press position. lat and tricep are tight together, and the elbow is resting on the floor. Keeping the knees tucked in with a supporting top hand grip helps to pry the kettlebell off the ground while minimizing stress to the elbow and shoulder. With your feet planted, use both hands to press the kettlebell into a straight arm lockout. Once you're secure in the lockout, let go with the top hand and rest the arm palm up at about 45 degrees away from the body. Adopt the same angle with that same side leg. This is the first place people get tripped up on by extending the wrong leg. An easy way to check yourself here is by wiggling your free hand and foot, which should always be on the same side. So think you have a free side and you have a planted side. The elbow should remain locked straight with strong triceps throughout the getup. Likewise, the wrist should be kept straight or slightly goosenecked in. A bend in either the elbow or wrist creates dangerous instability and stress on the joints and tendons. Now we're going to break away from the floor with a diagonal roll up to the elbow. Simultaneously dig in and pull with the planted elbow, push with the opposite foot, and cut the angle across, leading with the chest, all while keeping that top arm vertical. Don't flex at your neck. This is not a sit-up. Bonus tip, to really get the feeling of pulling with the planted arm, try pulling against a heavy tipped over kettlebell handle. Next, we're going to create even more height by extending the downside arm into the tall seated position. As you straighten out the elbow, externally rotate the arm so the fingers point backwards. From here, you can take your time to move the planted hand around to find your most secure and comfortable position for the bridge. This bridge mirrors the same angle of the initial roll-up. We're lifting the hips up at a diagonal, not square and straight up. Root hard through the planted hand and planted foot and squeeze the glutes. The outer blade edge of the elongated foot can give some support, but keep the leg relatively relaxed. The next big transitional step is the leg sweep, and it's where a lot of lifters get pretzeled up. So again, and as always, practice this step without weight first. From the bridge position, bend the extended leg so that the knee points toward the planted hand. Pull that knee back until it's directly under the hip. When you settle, the bottom hand, bottom knee, and bottom foot should be in alignment. This is called the windmill base. The most common error is prematurely rotating the swept leg into a lunge position, which ends up twisting the back and compromises your base stability. Take your time to find the perfect alignment, which should create a 90-degree angle between the hips and legs. It should also feel easy to hold this position and to rock your hips forward and back towards that downside heel, which will set us up for the next transition. Now, if the high bridge sweep isn't appropriate for your mobility, you can simply fold the extended leg and sweep the ground, ending up in the same base position. From that windmill base, hinge the hip back towards the heel. This subtle move shifts the weight onto the hips and away from the planted hand. You should be able to easily pull your hand off the floor and maintain your base and control of the kettlebell. A common error here is merely side bending yourself up without loading that hip hinge. Before lunging up, you must first close that hip angle. I suggest stepping the front foot forward into alignment, as this gives you easy control over your foot placement. You could also simply windshield wipe the rear leg into alignment, but this method doesn't offer as much opportunity to make micro adjustments in your lunge setup. Plus, twisting the knee like that isn't fun on hard surfaces. At this point, most of the hard work is behind you. You're in the bottom of your lunge position in that half kneeling stance, and this is a great opportunity to take some time to check your alignment and reset any joints or muscle groups that have gotten a little loose. The rear toes should be tucked under, the bottom knee is directly under the hip, the front knee is at 90 degrees, and the loaded arm is in vertical alignment with the torso. Now that you are in a solid base of support, you no longer need to keep your eyes on the kettlebell. You can bring your gaze forward, give the handle an extra squeeze, drive off the back foot into a standing lockout. Congratulations, you've just done a picture-perfect get-up. So take a breath or two, but don't lose your focus because we've got to get all the way back down, and we're going to be just as precise with all of our steps. Begin with a reverse lunge of the unloaded side leg. Plant the knees soft and make any micro adjustments you need. Bonus tip, it's easy to get your lunge legs mixed up on the way down. A simple way to get it right every time is to cue yourself with a leg tap. The leg you tap will always be the correct one to lunge back with. Now that you're at the base of the lunge, open the hip by sweeping the front leg out to the side. Hinge the hip towards that downside heel as you bring your gaze back up to the kettlebell. That hip hinge lowers your torso, which makes it easier to find the ground again with your free hand. Slide your hand out as you move the torso laterally back into the windmill base position. Pause here and make sure everything is squared up as before. The bottom foot, knee, and hand are in a straight line, the hip is at 90 degrees, and the eyes are back up on the kettlebell. We are not going to perform a high bridge on the way down. Simply root hard through the foot and hand and sweep the back leg out and take a seat. We're almost there, but don't rush through the final steps. Simultaneously fold the elbow and turn the torso back into that diagonal. Return to the floor in the same wave-like fashion you came up with. Don't crash. Bring the extended leg back in and plant both feet. Use two hands to bring the kettlebell down to your side, tuck the knees, and roll over to your side to park the kettlebell. Congrats! That's the full Turkish Get-Up. Now, of course, this isn't the one and only way to do a get-up. There are tons of variations, but these are the steps, cues, and techniques that I take my clients through when learning the get-up. The last main point we'll address in this video is how to breathe in the get-up. The get-up is both an isometric and dynamic lift. The top arm obviously is contracting and holding in place, while the rest of the body moves underneath it. So the key here is to maintain an appropriate amount of tension that allows both of these things to happen simultaneously throughout the lift. And the breath is what largely dictates that tension. I suggest breathing through the nose deep into the belly as much as possible. Not only is this going to help keep you calm and focused, but will probably also help keep you from shrugging the shoulders up into the ears. But do not use that as an excuse to lose core engagement. You really want to prioritize abdominal stiffness and that lat engagement throughout the lift. So being able to maintain that engagement while deep nose breathing is a skill that you're gonna have to practice. But with practice, you will get used to it. Now, if you do find yourself getting stuck while moving through certain transitions, obviously you can use the breath to give you a little extra power. So what I might recommend is before you make a transitional move, take a larger inhale than normal, Squeeze the handle extra tight and then exhale as you're moving through the step. Now, you could exhale through the nose and make a sound like, right? So actually making like a throaty type sound can help with core engagement. Or you could also do the classic power breath that we know from kettlebell pressing and kettlebell swings, where you're making a s sound through the mouth there as well. So experiment with both of those ideas, but of course, the goal is to find that appropriate amount of tension, not being too loose, also not being too tight. And that's really the dance of the Turkish Get-Up. So that's the Turkish Get-Up in a nutshell. Of course, there are a million ways to hack this exercise. There's always something new to learn, always something to practice, but hopefully what you got out of this video is a great overview, something that you can continue to reference. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Of course, I've got many other videos on the Turkish Get-Up, which I will link as well. But in the meantime, all the best in your training, and we will see you in the next video.